Okay, there we go. Can you all see the shared screen? If you can just
Yes.
give... Brilliant, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking on the microphone. Okay, so we're going to begin today. So welcome everybody. This is our second class together. The first class was a little bit more of an introduction and just doing some tasks. Again, we'll be doing some tasks, but it'll be more task heavy, task and activity heavy, and a little bit less of an introduction lesson. We'll be doing quite a bit of work together today. Now, I'm just going to briefly go through the agenda of what we'll be looking at today. So we'll be referring to the course textbook, which I know that you all have already. We'll start by going through the exercises on page 13 and 14. And if we do have time later, we'll then also go back and look at page 8 and 9. But to start with, just make sure you have pages 13 and 14 open. The language that we'll be looking at, so here I have a little list. So we have some collocations and fixed phrases. Specifically, we'll be looking at make and do, phrases of collocations with make and do, simply because it's very common for students to get these two verbs mixed up when it comes to fixed phrases. And if we have time a little bit later, we can start also looking at phrasal verbs. And if you don't know what those are right now, then don't worry. We will go over them a little bit later if we have time. If not, we'll save it for the next class. So in our class today, we'll also be going through an exam strategy for one part of the reading. And for that, we'll go looking at something called an open-close task. And that's a type of reading task in the exam. Sorry, I keep getting a pop-up, but I'm not sure what it means. Please. So I'm a little bit confused by this notification I have. I'll just ignore it for the time being. Okay, so we'll be looking at a little bit of exam strategy for one of the types of reading tasks that you have for reading and use of English section of the exam. One of the skill that we'll be looking at is skim reading. And later, if there's time, we'll be looking at some grammar, and specific grammar will be forming questions in the present tense, specifically using do. Okay, so just moving everybody over here. Okay, so in a moment, I'm going to put you into breakout groups, and all I'd like you to do is to brainstorm some household tasks. So examples of household tasks, that's all I want you to do, and I'm just going to put you in to breakout groups just for a couple of minutes. And then we'll come back, and I would like you to share some of your ideas of what household tasks there are, and then we'll talk about which ones you like doing, which ones you don't like doing, which ones you hate doing. So I'm just going to stop sharing the screen and then put you into your groups. Okay, so you'll be in two groups. So please just brainstorm some examples of household tasks. Thank you, everybody, and I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Remember to talk in English. Hi, everyone. Just waiting for everybody to come back from the breakout rooms. Okay, so hopefully you all had some really good discussion and you had some ideas regarding what kind of household tasks, household chores there are. Okay, so I'm just going to share the screen again. So what I have here, as you can all see, I have a little table. And what I'd like you to do is I would like for you to just tell me, so an example of a household task that you discussed in the breakout rooms just now. So if you want to answer, to make a suggestion, please just turn your microphone off and give me an example of a household task. remember that if you want to speak, that you should unmute your microphone. Does anyone have any examples? Think about what tasks you have to do at home. And we can start, I'll start off with one. So washing the dishes is a good example of one. And I'm going to put this in the table. And so now you will see whether I like it, whether I hate it, or whether I don't mind doing it. And actually, I can say that I don't like it. I hate washing the dishes. So please, can we have just a few more examples? That's it, just 2 or 3 more examples. Just switch off your microphone and tell me.
Sweeping the floor.
Good. Okay, and do you like doing this? Do you hate it or do you not mind it?
Hate.
Okay, so sweeping the floor. Yeah. So any other examples?
I like to.
Oh, so Anthony, could you continue?
I like to wiping the window.
Okay. So, like doing, okay. So normally we would say cleaning the windows. So cleaning the windows. But you use the verb wiping. Now we tend to use wipe with wiping surfaces. So you can wipe a surface or wipe clean a surface. So I'm going to put that as well, and I'll put it in the same category as like. So to wipe, wipe the surfaces, or we can say to wipe down the surfaces. So for example, the kitchen surface. So you wipe down the kitchen surface so that your food preparation area is clean. Okay, so can I have one more example?
Car washing.
Okay, so if I've heard that right, and do you like doing it? Do you hate or don't mind?
Hate.
I hate. I actually expected all of these to be in the hate category because I don't know many people who like doing housework except my 2-year-old son. He loves cleaning the windows. He is obsessed with cleaning the windows. Okay, so it was cleaning the car, if I heard that correctly. Cleaning the car. Okay, good. So what we're going to do next, we'll come back to talking about these household tasks. So now some of you may have already done the quiz that was on the website. Miss Wong did mention that this quiz was available on the Tuition King website, and in our last session she showed you where this quiz was. However, don't worry if you haven't done this quiz in advance of the class. Don't worry, because I was thinking that perhaps for our first week it was a bit too much work to ask you to do before the class. So as I said, don't worry if you've not done that quiz already. The quiz just is the reading from page 13. It's called Doing the Chores. And as I said, don't worry if you haven't done it already. You'll have the chance to read it and to go through the answers to this together. So don't worry too much about that. But before we start by looking at the reading, I just want us to take a moment to look at task, so the exercise 1 that's located. So I will show you where that's located on page... Oh, I'm trying to find the tab, but I can't. It's on page 13. anyhow. And as I mentioned, it's called Doing the Chores. Okay, so in a moment, I'm going to put you in your breakout groups. I'd like you to do 2 tasks, and you have about 5 minutes to complete these tasks. So first of all, I would like you in your breakout group to do the matching exercise from page 13, exercise 1. And this is where you have to match the verbs with the noun phrases to create common, so these express common household tasks. So that's the first thing that I would like you to do, and I'll try to put you in pairs instead of groups this time. And after that, once you're done, remember you only have 5 minutes, so this is a quick activity that I would like you to do together. Then we'll go through the answers. And I would like you to discuss the answer to number 3 on page 13 as well. The question is, why do teenagers do housework? And this is based on the reading. So something I want to say before I send you into your breakout groups is that I think many of you may not have done the quiz, may not have already done the quiz. So this means that you would have to do the reading. So something I want to say is that you shouldn't spend too long reading the passage on page 13. So this is called Doing the Chores. You should only spend 1 minute reading this. The reason why we should only spend 1 minute is because we need to practice a skill called skim reading. And all this means is reading something very quickly in order to get the main idea of what it's about. So today I wanted to introduce to you the idea of skim reading for you to have a chance to practice that, and we'll also come back to this skill in other lessons too. So remember, so I might give you a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but not much longer at all. And in those 5 minutes, I want you to complete exercise 1. We are matching the verbs and the noun phrases. And then I want you to skim read the article Doing Chores, spend 1 minute doing that, and then discuss the answer to number 3. So you're doing exercise 1 and 3. We're not doing exercise 2. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Exercise 1 and 3, and that includes skim reading the article Doing Chores. Now I'll give you a little bit more than 5 minutes to include the reading, but please only skim read for 1 minute. Try to time yourself doing this. Okay, thank you everybody. I'm just going to set up your breakout groups now. Hi everybody, welcome back. Thank you very much. So I'd like to ask you, how did you find the exercise? So specifically, I want to ask you, did you find that you were able to skim read the article in 1 minute? So just switch off your microphone to answer, please. I'm going to share my screen. Here, so I'm sharing my screen right now, and so this is the reading Doing the Chores, and I asked you to try to read this article in under a minute. Did you find that you were able to do this, or did it take you longer than a minute? Okay, the reason I'm asking is because, as I said, it's very important to develop the skill of what we call skim reading. So This is just reading a text for the overall meaning. So you can get the idea of the kind of information that is in the reading. Okay, I'm just now switching back to the presentation. And before we go through the answers here for exercise 1, I'd actually like to go through the answers to the other question that I asked. So going back here. So I asked you, why do teenagers do housework? And actually within this text, there were 5 possible answers. And so I'm going to ask for volunteers now. Did anyone manage to find any of the answers? So why do teenagers do housework?
They do housework for pocket money.
Good, excellent. Our first reason is very early on. Excellent, thank you very much. So that's one answer. Anyone have the second answer?
They do housework that a way of getting ready for adult life.
Perfect, exactly. And our third answer?
To help their parents.
Can you say that again? I didn't understand.
To help their parents.
Okay, good. So to help their parents. So the answer so the information there is to help their parents. You have 2 possible answers there. So that you have they help their parents because they have they feel it's their duty, and because they feel that it's fair. And there's one more answer somewhere in the text. Did anyone get the final answer? Because as mentioned, there was 5 possible answers. Okay, now the final answer is not located here in the first paragraph, because you probably noticed that all the answers so far are here. Actually, the final answer is down here. So they feel that their parents make them do the housework. So that was the 5th reason. Okay, I'd now like to go and look at the answers to this exercise here. And I've actually just got the other presentation here. So can I have someone to volunteer to tell me what the verb is for A, so the beds? What verb should be here?
I think it's lay the beds.
Okay. Do we agree? Anyone else want yes or no? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reveal. So this one is to make the bed. We make the bed. English is quite difficult with regards to this, isn't it? You have a lot of fixed phrases and collocations and phrasal verbs that make it really difficult. So what about B? So something the dinner ready. What verb do you think should be here?
Get the dinner ready.
Okay, let's see. Yes, good, exactly. Well done. C, something the floor. Now, someone already said this earlier, so let's see if you were listening and if you remember. something the floor. It has already been said.
Let's set the floor.
Good, good. Okay, but the pronunciation here, it's a long E. Now, if you have trouble in English with the long E sound, a useful tip is to try to smile as much as you can. So over we tell people to say cheese, because when you say E, you should smile and show your teeth. So E. So we want people to smile in a photograph. So we ask them to say cheese, because a big smile. So for this word, sweep, you really need to emphasize that long vowel, E, sweep. Okay. Well done. That was that was quite a specific verb we need for talking about cleaning the floor. We normally say to sweep the floor, but we can also say to brush the floor as well. But it's very common to say sweep the floor. Okay, what about D? Something the furniture.
That's the furniture.
Yes, good. Dust the furniture. I don't have anything else to say about this one. Very simple and straightforward. Now, what about the ironing? And it's quite a difficult word to pronounce. Even I have some difficulties. It's a very strange word. Ironing. Oof. It's quite a difficult one to pronounce even for me.
Do the ironing.
Good, exactly. It is one of the chores, one of the expressions which we need with the verb do. Excellent. And F, we want to something the table. What are we doing? Okay. So I'm going to show you this one. Set the table. So the verb we would use here is to set the table. And this means to, for instance, you have a table, you want to put the knives and the forks and the spoons or chopsticks, which you might do over in Malaysia. And sometimes we also set chopsticks on our table as well. Not always though. Depends on what we're eating. Okay, let's look at G. Something the washing out to dry.
Hang the washing out to dry.
Good, good. Now, something that's quite interesting with this verb is that when we want to use the past participle, it's hung. So hang, hung. There is a special case in another context in which we would use ed, but it's a very specific context. Usually it's hung instead of hanged. Okay. Another final one, something the washing up. Now, usually here, washing up refers to usually it's the dishes. So this is usually what we mean when we say the washing up. And the verb here is do. So this is another example of a household task in which we would need to use the verb do. Now, just another note I want to make. In G, it says here, hang the washing out to dry, but we can also hang the washing up to dry. So out would be outside, and up would be maybe you don't have a back garden. So instead you would hang the clothes up on something to dry. So it's very important in English to pay attention to these prepositions and the differences between them. Okay, so those are the answers, and hopefully your answers are the same or similar. At least make a note of these correct answers for in future cases when you need to use these phrases, because they are very common phrases. Okay, so I'm now going to go back to our slide. Let me just find the slide. Oh, I've raced ahead a little bit in the slides. My apologies. I'll just find where we were. Here we go. So this type of reading task that we've just so on page 13, reading the chores, this is a specific reading task called an open-close task. And all that means is that you have a very short text and you have to fill in some gaps in the exam. Now, this part of the exam is testing two things in particular. One, your general understanding. And this is why we answered the questions a few minutes ago about why do teenagers do household tasks, and in which you had to look for some information to understand the general reasons why teenagers do the household tasks. So that's the understanding part. But the other very important part as well is this type of task is testing your knowledge of language structures as well. And in this type of task, the gaps that you have to fill for this reading task will usually be grammatical words or words that make up, so phrasal verbs, or they might be linking words, or they might be a small part of a fixed phrase, but usually they are more grammatical in nature, the words themselves. Okay. So I put here a little tip for preparing for this type of task in the exam. So this forms part of the reading and use of English, and read is my advice. Extensive reading. Your brain is quite natural at picking up patterns in language, and the more you read in English, the more you will see these specific specific examples, language structures used in context. So read as much as you can in English, as I've mentioned in a previous lesson as well. So I already mentioned that you should, first of all, when you come across a task like this, just skim read it. Spend a minute skim reading it at first to get the general idea, general gist, and then you can go back to look a little bit more specifically at the sentences when you come to filling in the gaps. And we're going to go through some strategies in the next couple of slides as to how to fill in those gaps. Okay. So in a moment, I'm going to go through with you the strategies for filling in the answers for an open-close task. So what I will do is I will show you the exercise here, to the reading, and we'll look first of all at the example that's already been done, and I will provide a little analysis for you of that and the answer and how you can arrive at that answer, and then a strategy that we'll practice together for determining the first gap here, And then with this information, I will then ask you to go into your breakout rooms to apply the strategy to figuring out the gaps for the rest of the reading. If you've already done this reading because it was part of the quiz that was available on the website, then in your breakout rooms, I want you to compare your answers and use the strategies that we're about to talk about in order to decide with your partner in your breakout rooms whether or not you think your answer is correct. Okay, so before we go into our breakout rooms, we'll talk a little bit about strategy. Okay, just moving you to there. Just trying to figure out the best place to move you so I can so we can see all the text and so that I can navigate through here. Okay, so something general I want to say is when faced with this type of reading text, you should first of all look at the position of the gap in the sentence, because this can give you clues as to what kind of word is needed. And we're going to have a look at this in the first example. Now, I've got the first example in the slide, so we don't need to navigate between the book for the moment. So this is the first sentence here with a gap. So the first gap labeled 0. Now, the reason it's labeled 0 is because in the exercise book, you see it's already been done for you. And when you're in the exam, the first example will usually be done for you. And so it will be labeled 0. Okay, so according to a recent study of teenagers, most of them do not do housework just for pocket money. So let's analyze this. Okay, so what you have here in this example is you have a gap before pocket money, and pocket money is a noun phrase. Okay, so just before I add to that, I want to point out that along with looking at the position of where the gap is in the sentence, you should read the whole sentence to try to determine what kind of information is being expressed in the sentence. So what we need here, reread this sentence. Teenagers, most of them do not do housework, something pocket money. So we know that in this gap, we need something for expressing purpose. Okay, so the word purpose is here. We need something to express purpose. And in English, we tend to use prepositions to express purpose. Okay, so 2 clues that you have from this example. First of all, from reading the sentence, you know you need something to express purpose. Second thing to note, the position of the gap. It comes just before a noun phrase. So these are all good clues to tell you that what you need in this gap here is actually a preposition. And you saw in the book, the answer's been done for you. So I want to just tell you a little bit about that preposition. So the preposition that we need here is for. For is a preposition that we use for expressing purpose, especially if what comes after is a noun phrase or an object phrase. So for is used if what follows is the object phrase. And I've got an example here. So what did you do that for? I did it for him. I did it for love. So you see here, it's always for that you have a direct object. You did it for love. So when what follows is an object or a noun or noun phrase, we tend to use for. Okay. Now, you might be wondering, I I did include a little bit extra here, just in case you had a question about, well, why do sometimes we say, for expressing purpose, I did it for? Why do sometimes we use because? I did it because, or I did it to. Well, I have a very short explanation here, just very simple, straightforward. I did it because. You would use because before another phrase or another clause. Because reason. Well, we would use the preposition to if what follows is a verb phrase. So I did it to. I did it to. I can't think of an example, right? I did it to help him, for example. Right, so there's an example phrase we have. So normally we would use that before a verb or a verb phrase. Okay. So do you have any questions that you would like to ask? Because I realize that this is a lot of information. Strategy is always a little bit information heavy. So if you have any questions, please just switch your microphone off and ask me. Okay. So next slide is just a summary of what's just been said. So please just take a moment to read this to yourself. So I will stop talking for a moment and you just read, because it's just a repetition of what I have said. Okay. So if you've read the summary here, reading for the meaning and looking at the gap to determine its position in order to find out what kind of word it is, I'd now like us to practice this together. We're going to look at one more example, and this is number 1. So this is our example here, the example sentence. Please take a moment to read this. Okay, so let's put our strategy into practice. Determining the type of word. We have a gap here. What's here? We have a pronoun, a gap, and then a noun phrase. So that's the information we have to begin with. In terms of reading around it for meaning, there's an expression here. Does anyone know what this expression means? So what does see it mean in this context? Does anybody know? So teenagers see doing household chores, something, a way of getting ready for adult life. What do you think see it means, because it's not literal. It means something else other than see. Any ideas? What does it mean? Okay, so I'll just briefly explain what this means. In English, we tend to use the verb see to mean to understand or to consider. So let's replace this with the word consider. So I'm just going to type in our word here. So now it reads, while many do household chores, because they consider it something, a way of getting ready for adult life. Now, in English, as I mentioned, we use see for meaning to understand and for to consider as well. So I'm going, before we type the actual answer, I want to just type a couple of examples of see in some phrases in English. So I see what you mean. So this is where the meaning is understand. In a moment, I'm going to give you an example sentence where it means consider. But before I do that, I want to ask you, what do you think the answer is here? What kind of word do we need? It's a gap between a pronoun and a noun phrase. So it's going to be a preposition of some sort. But which preposition? Does anyone know what the answer is? If you do, please remember to switch your microphone off. Okay, so no one has an answer for me? You're not sure? It's okay if you're not sure. I just want to make sure that you haven't told me the answer and you've just forgotten to unmute your microphone. So, okay. The answer here is as to see, to consider, or to see it as a way of getting ready. Okay, the answer here is as. I'm going to give you another example. So we have see to mean understand, but let's look at another example sentence. I see work as a way to keep busy, to distract myself. And in this sentence, see means consider or view. So to view it, to consider. So I see work as a way. Oops. There we go. Okay, so preposition here is as. So I'm just going to move on to our next slide. There's a final bit of helpful advice on that before we go away and do an exercise together. Okay, so in a moment, I'm going to put you back into the breakout rooms. Let's see, we're going to do this in pairs. So if you've done as is mentioned, if you've done the reading in advance and you've already filled in the answers, then you should be comparing your answer with your partner, but this time using some of the strategies that we've talked about. So please do remember those strategies to read the information in the sentence so you can determine what kind of information there is, and B, look at the position of where the gap is in the sentence, the words around it, as we've discussed. Okay, So if you haven't done the quiz online, which is, as I said, the reading, then just fill that in together, fill in the gaps. So use the strategies we've discussed, but also if you find that you're still not sure, or if you're finished and you want to check your answers, actually exercise 5, if you look in your book. So this is located under what we've done. And there are some clues. So there is a clue for each gap to help you. Okay. So I'm going to give you, for this exercise, let's see, I'm going to give you more than 5 minutes, but not as long as 10 minutes. So maybe about seven or so minutes. So in about 7 or so minutes, I will then bring you back and we will go through the answers together. Okay, so everybody's clear on what we're doing. You're going into breakout rooms in your pairs to fill in the gaps from the reading exercise, which I'll just show you. So in pairs, using the strategies to fill in the gaps. If you've already done it, then you're checking your answers with your partner, comparing your answers with your partner in terms of the strategies, and decide if you think what you've got is correct. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing and arrange those groups. Hi everyone, just waiting for one more person to come out of the breakout room. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Okay, did you find this exercise difficult, or did you find it was easy, an easy exercise? If you can switch off your microphone just to say, yeah, easy or difficult. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a different question. So please answer. Did the strategies help? Can you give me a thumbs up if you don't want to speak on the microphone, or thumbs down? Okay. Let's go. Well, I suppose we'll see in a moment when we go through the answers. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Just one moment, I can't find the screen that I would like. Here. Okay, so we're just going to quickly go through the answers and then we're going to take a 5-minute break. So we're starting here with number 2 here. So more than 2/3 of the young people who survey clean floors. What is our answer? Can someone unmute, please?
At least.
Good, excellent, perfect. And what about for number 3? Regularly set the table or something the washing up.
Do the washing up.
Good, thank you very much. Girls are more likely than boys to wash.
Wash their own clothes.
Yeah.
Good. Exactly. How about here? Something are, however. anybody get number 5?
Is it there are?
Yes. Another there. So just be careful in English that sometimes we have these words that sound identical, but they are spelt differently and used in different contexts. Here we have a possessive. Here we have it's not a possessive, since it's okay. Number 6. So because they are made something by their parents. So it's a bit of a difficult one. Did anybody get number 6? Now it's in number 6, it's very important for you to have read the information in the sentence beforehand, because it's missing part of its phrase. It refers back to something. Did anyone get the answer for number 6? Okay, I'm going to show you.
It.
Can you say?
It.
Okay, not it. I'm going to show you. The answer here is to. They are made to. Okay, so let's talk about this expression. I'm going to put another example just next to the sentence here, number 6. So, so it says to be made to do something. However, in this sentence, we don't have the something. This is what I meant when I said that the phrase is not complete. It's referring back. So what is it talking to? So what are they made to do? So the teenagers are made to do something. What's the something in this sentence? What is it talking about? What do the parents make them do?
Housework.
Exactly. Now, I know that may have sounded like such a simple question to ask you, but it's very important to bear these things in mind when it comes to this type of exam. They are made to. Now, normally in English, you are made to do something, but it's not, the phrase is not here. It's referring back to something that has already been said. Okay. And I've just put a little example here of to be made to do something. So for instance, they made me do my homework, for example, or I made her tell me the truth. Okay. And I realize that you can see part of the answer for number 7 because I've typed some extra things in here. But in case you didn't see it, can somebody please tell me the answer to number 7? What should be here in this gap?
Not.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I think that if we look at the evidence on number 7, it's quite easy to arrive at this answer, because what's being expressed in the sentence is an opposite. So they argue that they should something be expected to help out, because in their view, so we know it must be negative. It has to be some form of negation. Should not be expected. Of course, in speaking, we would say shouldn't, but here, should not. Okay, number 8. So there's some really good contextual information here to help you get the answer. What is the answer? Did anyone get it?
Rather.
Okay, I think you said, is it rather?
Yes.
Oh, why is there we go. Okay, good. Exactly, rather. And we know that because there's some opposite information being. So teenagers should be enjoyed, the opposite of which would be interrupted. So we know, therefore, we need a phrase like rather than. An alternative phrase which you could use is instead of. So we could say, should be enjoyed rather than interrupted, or another similar phrase, should be enjoyed instead of being interrupted. So I'm just giving you an alternative way of phrasing it, but the answer is rather. And with rather, you would normally have to say than as well. It's very important that these two words are together, rather than. And if you wanted to use instead, it would have to be instead of. Okay, so we've done a lot of hard work, and I know that the break is much later today than it was last week. So let's, I apologize for that. So let's break for 5 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll just do some simple talking and looking at vocabulary. So some easier stuff than what we've been doing so far. Okay, so I shall see you all in about 5 minutes. So just feel free to keep your microphones muted and to switch off your camera and do what you want to do for 5 minutes. See you very soon. Okay, hey everyone, welcome back. So I'm just going to share the screen again. Okay, so in a moment, I'll be putting you back into your breakout groups just to answer a couple of simple questions. So I think that I've been talking enough in our lesson, so I would really like to get you all talking a little bit more. But we're just going to do this in the breakout rooms together. So in a moment in pairs, I'd like you to discuss with your partner the answers to these questions. So thinking back to the chores that you saw in exercise 1. So this exercise here where you had to match, which we did this together, so to hang up the washing, for instance. So just thinking back to the example chores in exercise 1, I want you to answer these questions in your pairs. Who does each of these chores in that exercise? And I also want you to think whether or not what the text says, so that's the reading, doing chores, what it says about teenagers and household chores. Is this the same in your country as well? Okay, so I'm just going to give you 3 minutes to have a little discussion about this. Okay, so who does the chores, and is what the text says true about teenagers and household chores in I will ask volunteers to your answers. Okay, so just setting up your breakout groups now. Okay, so I think that's everybody back now. Okay, so I'm just going to ask you some volunteers to tell me a little bit about the questions that were asked. So can anyone give me some examples of chores that they do in their household? So do any of you do the ironing, for example? So if you could just remember to unmute your microphone and say, well, in my house, I tend to do the ironing because I like it, for example. Not me personally, I don't like ironing, but this is an example. Anyone else have an example of household chores that you tend to do in the household? So just to help as well, there are some examples within the book as well. So if I just share screen, and there is a nice example. Oh, not this one. Here. So if you can see on my screen here, that I'm sharing with you is a lovely example. So we all do our own ironing because we're all very busy. My dad gets the dinner ready because he says it helps him relax. Do any of you have a similar example? Okay, so I think that perhaps some of you are quite shy, and that's perfectly fine because this is just our second lesson ever together, and I can imagine you're still getting to know me, you're still getting to know your classmates, and you're also developing your confidence as speakers of English. But I do just want to say that soon we will be moving on to the speaking part of the FCE exam, and so for this it's very important that you also speak in the exam as well, not the exam, sorry, in our class, not just for the sake of answering the exercises, but also for the sake of just practicing and speaking and finding out a little bit more about each other. Okay, so I'll ask you the next question once again. Sorry, I'm just on the wrong slide here. Okay, so regarding what the text says, so the text doing the chores, is this true of teenagers in Malaysia? Can somebody tell me a little bit about that, please? So do you get pocket money, for example, for doing housework? Do teenagers in Malaysia like doing housework, or do they absolutely hate it? What would you say? Tell me about the culture in Malaysia. I think it was Anthony who likes cleaning windows. I think I may have, I may not have remembered that correctly. But is it common for teenagers to like or dislike housework? Please tell me. I want to know more about Malaysian culture. Okay, perhaps another time when you're all feeling a little bit more confident then with your speaking. Okay, so I do hope to find out more about Malaysian culture in our lessons. Okay then, so let's take a look at some vocabulary. And this is what we will be doing for the remainder of our lesson, especially looking at the verbs make and do. Okay, so in the box at the top right-hand side of page 14, which I will just skip to here, you can see a box full of different expressions here. And each of these expressions form part of what's called a collocation with either make or do. Okay, I'm just going to go back. So what we're going to start with, first of all, is I'm going to explain a little bit about what a collocation is, in case you don't know. And then we're going to look at the definition of each of the two verbs, so make and do. And then we'll be going into the breakout groups again for 5 minutes. You and your partner are going to try to decide which of the phrases in the box go with make and which go with do. Okay, so first of all, looking at collocation. So all collocation means, if you don't already know, is it describes words that frequently are found together. And usually the words, when they're together, form a different or a new meaning. and they are usually very dependent on each other. So for instance, in the examples, so in the box that we're about to look at on page 14, all of those expressions you have to use with either make or do. Now, in a collocation, as I said, the words occur together. If you looked at the meaning of make, the meaning of do, and then the meaning of the phrase in the box by themselves, then there would be separate meanings. But when they come together, they create a new meaning. And that's what is meant by a collocation. And phrasal verbs as well, which we'll look at in our next lesson, are a type of collocation. Okay, so let's look at the definition. Yes, I have no idea if any of you watch The Simpsons, but the title of the slide is a reference to The Simpsons, the box. So here you have a little definition of make, to create or to produce something, and a definition of do, so to perform an activity or job. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you in your pairs, in your breakout groups, to just quickly within 5 minutes, I'd like you to go through as many of these as possible and to put them into, to decide whether or not they go with make or do they take do. An example here, make an appointment, or to do an activity that's been crossed off here and it should be in this box here. Okay, so I'm going to put you in breakout groups again. You have 5 minutes. Good luck, class. Hopefully that should be a fun exercise for you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And my cat has come to say hello as well. So this is my cat. And her name is Domino, which I will just type here, Domino. Although I like to call her Domino, because she's dumb. Okay, anyway, thank you, everybody. Let's go, let's have a look at the answers. We'll go through this together. Oh, just sharing screen. Okay, there were quite a lot of phrases there. I think I counted like 27 phrases. So hopefully you managed to get through them all together within the 5 minutes. If not, we will spend the rest of our class going through the answers together, and then I'll ask you to do something for homework. Okay, first example. So remember to unmute your microphones if you want to speak to give me the answer. An arrangement. Is an arrangement something we make or is it something we do?
Make an arrangement.
Good. Perfect. And what about the bed?
Make the bed.
Good. Perfect. Okay. What about business?
Make business.
Okay, this one is actually not make, this one is do. So we do business. So let's do some business. We got some business done. Okay, great work, everybody. A change, is that something we make or do?
Make a change.
Good. Excellent. What about a choice? I think this is probably one that was slightly easier for.
Make a choice.
Can you say that again, please?
Make a choice.
Good. Excellent. What about cleaning? Now, we've kind of covered this already.
Do the cleaning.
Mm-hmm. Good. Now, a course. Do you make a course or do you do a course?
Do a course.
Good. So for example, a language course, I'm doing a language course. And that's what that means by course. Let's see our next example, a decision.
Make a decision.
Good. And effort. Do you do effort or do you make effort?
Do an effort.
Okay, not this one. This one is with make. So make an effort. And I'm going to give you an example. So you should make an effort to example, to pay attention during class, for example. That's not a passive aggressive comment to anybody, but just an example. Okay, so to make an effort. What about an excuse?
Make an excuse.
Good, so make an excuse. I want to give you an example sentence for this. So he keeps making excuses. So just something very quickly I want to say about an excuse. So as a noun, it's an excuse. But as a verb, it's to excuse. So to excuse me. So just a little pronunciation difference there for those two related words. Okay, and what about an exercise? Do you make or do you do an exercise?
Do an exercise.
Good. So exercise, you do an exercise or do some exercise. And this is the same whether it's an exercise in class. So for instance, right now we're doing an exercise, or even for physical exercise. So I'm doing some exercise at the moment before class, for example. So we would use do in both contexts. Okay. A favor. Make a favor or do a favor? What do you think?
Make a favor.
Okay, not this one. This one is with do. So you need to do a favor. I'm going to give you a couple of examples here because with some collocations, you can't move various parts of the sentence. So I'm going to give you an example of what I mean by this. So I did him a favor. So you can do a favor, so whereby you have the verb do plus the noun favor, or you can, as I call it, interrupt it. You can put an object pronoun or in between the verb and the noun. So it's possible. I did him a favor. I did her a favor. I did them a favor. And usually as well, we would say a favor for. You can say I did him a favor, or you can say I did a favor for him. I'll just type out because I did a favor for him, for example. Okay. Friends. It's quite a funny example, actually.
Make friends.
Yeah, it means something completely different if you do a friend. If you do a friend, well, that's that means something very, very different and very kind of rude as well. So make a friend. You don't do a friend. Okay. Homework. Make or do we do? Homework.
Do homework.
Good. Okay. Housework.
Do housework.
Good. Just very simple examples. I'll just put those together. Now, a slightly harder one. An impression. An impression.
Make an impression.
Good. It is. Well done. So, an impression. He made a very good impression at his interview. Or, because I want you to note that when another way to talk about an impression is this example. So she made a good impression on him. On. This is the preposition we would use within this specific fixed phrase. So either you can say that this person made a good impression at, when you're talking about a place. When you're talking about a person, it's a good impression on him. Okay. The next example is job.
Do a job.
Good. A mistake.
Make a mistake.
Good. Exactly. Money. Money.
I think is make money.
Yes, that's right. You make money. Oh, sorry, just money. And noise.
Make a noise.
Good. Okay. And a phone call.
Make a phone call.
A lot of these are a make, aren't they? Majority of these. Okay, just a couple more. What about a plan?
Make a plan.
Yes. Again, another make. Progress.
Make progress.
Yes. Now, just a little pronunciation difference. In British English, we would actually say progress, and in American English, it's progress. Now, it's your decision which one you want to use. There's no rule really which one you have to use for the FCE exam. I'm pretty sure that I use both pronunciations. Okay, so progress. What about a promise?
Make a promise.
Good. Thank you very much. And final 3, shopping.
Do the shopping.
Perfect. Now you can do the shopping, you can do some shopping. Okay, good. And how about sport? We have the final 2 examples are sport and work. So sport.
Do sport.
Okay. And the final one?
Do work.
Yeah, it is. Correct. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So as usual, I've planned too many activities. So what I would like for you to do for your homework, I will tell you about that next time. Okay. I'd like you to do this exercise on, so this is from your books on page 14, it's exercise 2. Now, this is just practicing your use of collocations with make and do, because as I said previously, that a lot of students tend to confuse make and do. So all you have to do for the next class is, I'd like you to do this exercise, just fill in the gaps, either with make or do. But remember to pay attention to tense in case you have to change the form of the verb. Okay. Okay, so just before you go, I did want to introduce you to this phrase, because if you remember the exercise we just did with the box, the collocations either took make or they took do. But I just wanted to quickly say that in English, we also have the phrase to make do with something. And it means to accept what you have, but what you have is something you don't want. So it's the way of expressing compromise. And an example sentence, I don't have a pen, so I'll just have to make do with a pencil instead. And that is the final thing that I want to leave you with. So, just a reminder that this is the exercise I would like you to do for your homework. Thank you very much, everybody. You've all worked very hard. Hopefully in our next classes, we can do some more speaking and some listening exercises as well. And we'll start some writing at some point soon as well. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Okay, goodbye.